Hello, I am Dr. Ani Kalayjian.
Good day, Dr. Ani Kalayjian, and hello to you. I am Tatev. I just go by my first name, which means give wings in Armenian, and I'm a composer for films and a performer.
Wonderful. What a very intuitive connection we have here together.
Yes.
So what are we discussing here today, Datev?
Well, you and I are quite the rebellious creatures with tons of energy and passion. So we decided to perhaps talk about stereotypes.
Yes.
And then let's see where it develops to.
Yes.
Adventures, conversations.
From stereotypes to the harem.
To the harem. To her harem.
To her harem. Let's start. What's the first question you have in mind? Query.
Yes. Well, I read your book, Forget Me Not. I was very touched that you particularly gave it to me in person at the end of my concert. And reading the book, I realized that Dr. Ani Kalayjian has a similar path, similar feelings that you developed as a kid. Although you had brothers, have brothers, but I grew up without knowing that I have a brother, but our experiences were pretty similar as far as our observations and thought processes about why can't I do this? Why is it done this way? I'm a girl. That doesn't mean I have to stay behind about certain things. And so then therefore our trauma seems to be having a similar route source too. So I wanted to know what you think, perhaps your career, would it have unfolded the same way? Would you have delved deep into trauma if your childhood and early youth was not the way it was? Maybe it's too vague of a question.
No, it's a perfect question. And I would say, no, it wouldn't have.
Yeah.
I mean, me being born in Aleppo, Syria, as a Christian Armenian girl, it definitely shaped everything. As a matter of fact, if you ask to my brother about his experiences of Syria, he talks about, fantasy harems. And me, I am angry, I'm upset, I'm frustrated because in that harem, it's women like me. Would I want to be used by people who I don't necessarily want to be with?
Yeah.
Because of my culture? No, I don't. So it's a lot to do about where and how and the experiences that shapes us. And I remember as early as 8 years old, I said to my mother, why is it that my brother can do things and I can't?
Yeah.
That, wow, they're boys. I said, that's not an answer. You got to give me a rationale, something that makes sense.
Right. And so when we're talking about, you're saying I asked my mother, obviously this growing up process and raising children has a huge part to play in, formation of society, for civilizational kind of outlook of what our principles are, of what our, what is the word, cultural stature, what's our leadership value, right? In the United States, I also grew up in, you grew up in Syria, but I'm also of Armenian heritage and grew up in Armenia observing similar things. Coming to the United States, I observed that the cultural leadership is much like, people in sports, businessmen, politics and religion is what seems to be the leadership of the United States. And how much of it is dependent on what our particularly moms teach us. Because in my opinion, everything starts from education. If we want to fix something, if we want to bring a balance and kind of intertwined energies to complete each other so we're more harmonious, that has to start when you're a small little kiddo.
Yes.
And if that's mostly on that, if that responsibility is mostly on the shoulders of women, where do we go from that? It's like this cycle that never sees its complete end of sorts. It's like a half of,
Well, women do have a lot of responsibility in how we are shaped in terms of gender specific behavior.
Yeah.
But at the end, we cannot totally blame the mother either, because they are victims of the societal
as well.
expectation.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, yes, mothers are responsible. The more my mom said, oh, your brothers don't know. You're the girl. You should be patient and you should be this. And I'm like, why aren't you expecting him to be the same?
Way. Yes, yes. If I may, I remember a specific example, and then we delve more into it. I remember I was maybe an 8-year-old girl or 7-year-old girl, and I was bringing coffee down to my grandfather downstairs to the summer hang place in the garden, and the saucer. I was, very vivacious, still am. So I guess maybe I was like dancing and bringing down the stairs, and so coffee spilled a bit in the saucer. And my grandfather said, "Oh, if you were with more nazankov, if you were with more grace, it wouldn't have spilled." But in the meantime, in the background, his grandsons were chopping off cats' tails and ruining everything in the garden. And I'm wondering, wait a minute, why is it that I'm expected to, as a 7-year-old child, be more graceful about bringing down his coffee so that it doesn't spill in the saucer? In the meantime, his grandchildren are destroying things, right, and not expected. Anyways,
and they're commended for being a boy.
Yeah,
that's what boys do. They say, parents.
Yeah.
And I do recall similar incident. I was pre-adolescent, maybe 11 to 12. And I was walking fast, like I walk now, fast. Everybody says, why are you running? And I'm like, no, I'm not running. This is my walk. I'm a New Yorker. Yeah. So my uncle really sat me down and had a long conversation that the women, girls have to take small steps. The size has to be less than your foot.
Wow.
And it has to be, legs have to be next to each other, rubbing, the thighs have to, and when I sit, I cannot have my knees apart. My knees have to be shut together.
Oh, yes.
Like it's like indication that my vagina is closed. So no one can really enter it. So it has to be tightly put together, the knees.
Yes.
I got a long teaching about this.
Yeah.
And my American friends don't believe when I was hiking and everybody said, why are you running? You just want to be the head? Is that the idea? And I said, no, this is my natural way of walking.
Yes.
And my steps are shorter but faster, because I've learned to do the short step, follow the uncle's advice, but then be fast at the same time.
Yes.
So then I explained it to them. They were like, come on, you're making up stories now.
Yes.
But I'm not. It's seriously.
It's true. And there's even much more of sorts academically rooted examples of this that subconsciously affect us. For example, I recently read one of my favorite books by Merlin, When God Was a Woman, and she's describing in it how first Western archaeologists and historians going to, ancient civilizations of the Mesopotamia area to do research and digging and find out where our roots and so forth, histories are. In that, the cultures that worshipped the goddess, the most early civilization, the goddess is always spelled with a small letter G, and the culture is always describing as a primitive culture from dark and scary times of sorts. Whereas when the deity becomes of sorts of the Judeo-Christianic and so forth religions, then the god is always spelled with a capital G. Or so many things, but gazillion examples like that. Or let's say gods that have raped nymphs and even in like mythology, right? They're called virile and very vivacious, the man, whereas if a woman had lovers, she was, had low moral standards and so forth. And I'm not talking about just simple women. I'm talking about priestesses. I'm talking about priestesses of high calling and very talented ladies that of course had many suitors and so forth, but their behavior outside of just say monogamous one type of relation was called, out of morals and prostitutes and so forth. Whereas for males, that was called a sign of youth, that they raped, important women in historical, from mythology to real history.
Sad. So let's look at who are responsible individuals in this village to shift this kind of antiquated attitude. Because in my private practice, Tatev, I see a lot of unhappy couples because now both women and men are working. There's very, very few stay-home moms or dads. So when both people work and they come home, and then the man goes with the newspaper in front of the TV with his beer, and the woman is doing childcare, homework, cooking, putting the children in bed, everything by herself, and getting ready to work the next day. So we need to really, really kind of delve into a couple of recommendations, what we suggest in terms of shifting this
consciousness,
uneven,
absolutely, stereotyping.
Yeah.
It is the responsibility of all of us, not just mothers, not just children, or not just separately men. It's a responsibility for all of us. And Bell Hooks, From Margin to Center, that particular book, delves very deep into racial and sexist issues. Well, sexism is the most ancient form
Racism.
of ism. Sexism is the most ancient. It's before even the recognition of it's the earliest and the most original of sorts ism there is. And I think she opens up this beautiful gates of great discussions that we realize how important it is for men to participate in this shift of consciousness just as much as women. And it's pretty sad that the terminology feminism has of sorts pushed away many women and men because of monotonous understanding of what the word is.
I have a good news. It's not at the United Nations. Our meaningful world organization is affiliated with the UN. And the post is all about feminism. Women can do it. Women are strong. So the message is clear from the UN, and they are now working very hard. And we're going to be presenting in March at the Commission of Status of Women. So we're going to have a whole panel there to discuss these. So I think, but mother is very important. I think if we can empower mothers to not give a special higher status to the boys. I know from my mother, me and my sister would do everything. We loved our mother, of course. We did everything. But then as soon as she got a call from one of our brothers, it's like she melted.
Sunshine.
She melted away and she couldn't wait. She had a smile ear to ear. But for us, she was critical. She was unhappy. She was disappointed all the time. Even when we got hundreds, why didn't you get 100 plus? It was like that. But for brothers, they were always, even though they didn't do much caring for her, but they were on a pedestal.
So I would say the same from my father. See, I said I didn't know I had a brother when I was growing up in the family, right? But my father would always, all my sisters and I are artists and creatives, and we'd be in competitions and concerts often. And he would often go like, well, you could never play like someone's son like that and stuff like that. I remember it hurts me till today. I don't think I've properly dealt with this issue of sorts. But that has impacted me hugely.
We like to work with the mothers to empower them so that they can stand up for what they truly believe in their hearts, because I think that what they do is the influence of the other men that they've had, their fathers, their grandfathers, etc., and the community at large that gets reinforced unconsciously over and over. The second thing is, I think, schools. In the schools,
education. Here we go.
There are so many research studies that when it comes to math and sciences, that teachers were found to encourage the boys in the class rather than the girls. So that's another area where teachers need to be mindful that they are really foundational actors in every child's life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Indeed.
And who else do you think? Religion, of course.
I didn't necessarily want to quote that subject, but it's the most important one to me. I see it that way from all the studies and research I do. It seems that the three main religions of sorts with them brought the end of much freedom for women, in my opinion.
I was fortunate. My brother, who's priest, and God rest his soul, he was very much sharing domestic work, cooking,
He was?
cleaning.
Your brother.
Yes, actually, all my three brothers.
Yeah?
Yeah.
But you said your mom's expectation was not the same.
Yes,
from them, though.
my mom said, "Oh, did you see? Your brother was changing the diaper. Did you see that? He was cleaning the bathroom." And I'm like, you should congratulate him. He's helping his spouse. That's a great thing.
Indeed.
So
there ought to be that way. Furthermore, it needs to be done without the woman saying, could you go
reminding,
this incentive of sorts. As we were discussing on the balcony earlier, I noticed that both in all the cultures and countries I lived in, the men who've gone to the Navy or the Army or so forth, particularly in Armenia, I've noticed this, who were completely like parasites on domestic level and functionality, became a bit more responsible for the domestic life and the cleaning and the cooking and so forth, and had a bit more of their ego polished also. So why can't we have this similar expectation outside of regimented army or navy or so forth atmosphere? Why can't it be in the homes where we all grow up?
So in my private practice, when I have preteens and family therapy, I always ask, what are the child's domestic responsibilities? And when it's a boy, they look at me and they say, well, I'll be happy if he keeps his clothes off the floor. Look at that. The expectation is so low that you're expecting. But when it comes to the girl, they expect the girl child to wash the dishes, help with the cooking, clean her
bedroom and so forth.
And everything.
Absolutely. I'm a teacher too. I noticed the same thing from all the parents. Pretty sad. Pretty sad.
Yeah. So I would recommend all parents to start in small doses from 5 years old. Even they can start putting napkins and utensils on the table, set the table, take the stuff to the kitchen.
Absolutely.
Small things gradually increase as they get efficient in their chores.
Absolutely.
It's very important to have this gender stereotyping eliminated and empower both genders to be responsible equally within the home.
Absolutely.
Yes. And what other recommendations do we have? I think
maybe through arts and culture and literature too. Like I know in a few years I will write the book that's in my head. It's called Her Harem.
Harem.
Yes. When I was a child, it kind of turned into a joke, but now it's taking a bit more serious form of sorts because I love massages. I love, of course, great musicians. And as a young musician, I was always falling in love with, pianists and so forth. And of course, I love cooking. And of course, I love eating too. And I thought, oh my goodness, it'd be so amazing if one day I had, a household where I had one husband who was a chef, one husband who was a pianist, one husband who was and so forth. So certainly it was a joke of sorts, but why not? If we introduce this through culture, through music, through, of course, I know you were saying too.
Well, one thing is for me is that I always say two wrongs don't make it right.
Yes.
Because the whole idea of harem was to really take advantage of women.
Yeah.
And sometimes when in femininity and the feminism, we go too far in the pendulum and we take male characteristics And then we become just like them. That's not the idea.
Not
The
at all.
idea
Not
is
at
not
all.
to be like them. Yeah, the idea is to create another environment more harmonious where we both can share.
Certainly.
And if that is your wish, you know, and you find those men who would cohabitate peacefully and they don't start with their, you know, fighting with one another, more power to you. But I believe in more monogamous life and having friends, platonic friends, which I do. I have 10 friends. One I do movies with, one massages me, one well, we go out to dinner, wine and dine. And that's the way, you know, but to have that freedom for us to do within the healthy frame of reference, within with respect, accountability, and full consent, of course, absolutely. And with all with passion and creativity, I think we're able to bring the genders together, and also we will benefit from this. Instead of having couples come to therapy because the husband is resisting and doesn't want to do the chores, and there's always a fight in the house, and there's this disharmony and a lack of symmetry. And that would be all prevented if everybody shares the responsibility. So what I recommend for before we end this beautiful conversation is everyone come together, make a list of your household chores and responsibilities and needs. And then each person put their initial next to it. You know, I do this, you do that. And then we see what is left that neither one wants to do.
And divide the responsibilities equally. I think that's
and then if you're able, you can hire someone to do those. If you're not able, then you would decide to compromise. 1 week you will do it, the other week partner does it. Your children, you get engaged, you know, get them involved too, is very important to have this sense of responsibility. And as we say at Meaningful World, when one helps another, both become stronger. So it's not like one should be sitting and the other one catering, then that's not empowering. Just resentment builds up. But when one helps another together, you can then do the best for your family.
Absolutely. Yeah, this will fix all of sorts of energies that are in discord right now. And it's fantastic to think about. It's truly not going to just bring goodness and easier life for women. Men don't realize how much suppression and anxiety and fear and kind of stuck up things they have inside, knots they have inside of them, because again, the society is the way it is. In certain scenarios, the expectation of them is on a much higher level that we don't comprehend, which will be fixed.
Our next discussion will be focusing on more how we can develop empathy and not try to fix everybody's problems, but be able to listen empathically and let the growth come within. Because it's not like we're not doctors to each other giving prescriptions. Even with that, you have to take on the responsibility of healing. Nobody can heal
Sadly not.
Better than yourself.
Indeed. I agree. Beautiful way to cadence it. Thank you, Dr. Annika.
Thank you, Dr. John.
Thank you for listening to us.
Yes, we will see you soon. Have a wonderful, beautiful, meaningful day, and we'll see you soon.